Hello and welcome to The Drum. I'm Steve Cannane. Coming up, 2 bishops thrown out of Parliament in a rowdy question time. Could cask wine be the latest thing to attract a great big new tax? And is Lord Monkton ignorant when it comes to rugby league? Our panel tonight, ABC Online's chief political writer, Annabel Crabb, David Marr from the Sydney Morning Herald, and Sue Cato from Cato Counsel. Well, with just one more sitting day to go before the big winter break, it seems our federal MPs are getting a little restless. It was a rowdy question time, dominated by a debate on the carbon tax. 4 opposition MPs were thrown out of the House of Reps for an hour, and as the patience of Speaker Harry Jenkins was sorely tested, he issued a general warning for all members to behave themselves.
If you want to have question and answer, have a question, have an answer. Not have debate entwined in it all, or not have things being done to get 10-second grabs for other purposes.
Because they are receiving thousands and thousands of dollars in donations all the time, and they are embarrassed about it.
Whoever had that phone that went off is very lucky. Under a general warning, that would be worth a naming, but I can't find out who it is. Order!
Annabel, what did we learn from question time today?
We learned that Harry Jenkins is slowly losing his mind, and fair enough, because there is nothing going on in that chamber at the moment. It's the most incredibly weird moment, because you have this redundant question time where opposition MPs are asking things like, well, what does it mean for whippersnippers? And the government says, wait till Sunday. And then, but what about coal industry jobs? Well, this special modelling that I have that I won't be able to show you till Sunday proves that there won't be any coal industry jobs lost and so on. I mean, everybody in that chamber should go out and pick up papers or something. Just help the elderly, do something else for a couple of days. Reconvene on Sunday when there are answers to these questions.
More farcical than normal, David, do you think?
Well, it certainly shows that the so-called big reforms of question time that came in after the last election haven't really worked to solve the fact that it's really a vaudeville routine as much as anything in Parliament.
It's a shorter vaudeville routine.
A shorter vaudeville routine, yes, that's true, and the jokes are so old and repetitive. And, of course, the problem is, and what's really sort of making a lot of people angry, is that they can't reconvene as a Parliament after Sunday to discuss the carbon tax details. And I think Abbott's got a point there. I think Parliament should be in session to discuss something as big and as complex as that. Alas, I don't know that it would get much of a complex, cool discussion, but I mean, should be happening.
We wonder why the electorate is disengaged and lacking in respect of politicians. And you see the way question time is carried out, and in fact the very conduct of debate between the two parties at the moment. I mean, it is farcical. But, if Parliament was back next week, they'd simply be doing the announcement following Sunday. It's an active decision.
I actually think that the Parliament, as far as this legislation is concerned, is kind of a done deal. I mean, we know that because Julia Gillard has spent a number of months locked in a tiny room with the people who could vote against it. And, she's got them on side. They are co-architects of the plan. So, the Parliament is going to pass this thing. The people of Australia need convincing, though, and I suspect that if she's going to make this into a long-term enterprise, then that's the people she needs to convince. She doesn't need to convince anybody else within Parliament.
I'm wondering, actually, and I've been having a debate with a few people in the last 24 hours, there's enormous fatigue about this debate in the electorate.
That's exactly right.
No one actually knows what's going on. They have no idea about the difference between Julia Gillard's plan and Tony Abbott's plan and whether it's going to make a difference or not. The changes aren't going to come in until 2012. They're probably not going to see real trickle-down effects in households until mid-2013, by which time we're going to have an election. So, I'm yet to be of the view that this is actually going to continue being a burden.
But who's responsible for this? I mean, it seems to me that Tony Abbott has decided long ago that there is not going to be a grown-up, calm discussion of these proposals. He has announced ages ago absolute opposition to them, and he's conducting the debate from that point of view. I really think that at this time, with something as important as this and as complicated as this, you could turn to the Leader of the Opposition and beg him to allow a big, sensible, calm public discussion of the issues at stake. but that is the last thing he's going to provide, and he's made that absolutely clear, not a secret.
I think that the corrosion of this particular debate actually has bipartisan authorship, to be honest. I think that the great tragedy of Australian politics over the last 4 years is its inability to extract agreement from what started off roughly as agreement. The catastrophic inability of our body politic to agree on something, even where moderate consensus exists, is really quite extraordinary. I mean, if you have a look at 2007, when both major parties went to the campaign offering an emissions trading scheme, what Kevin Rudd ended up with wasn't a million miles from the Shergold model that John Howard took to the 2007 election. I think that there are a lot of lessons to be learned out of the way the Rudd government initially handled the prosecution of this particular agenda. They made it about the opposition and about division in the opposition.
Sure.
And I think that
the history of this is muddled and unfortunate. But right now, we face one of the most important debates this country has had for a long time. And the opposition has made it perfectly clear that it is in full wrecking mode. We are not going to get sensible assessment from the opposition. And that, unfortunately, is going to mean that the problems of the problems
Let's talk more about one of those participants in the debate, and that's the coal industry. The coal mining industry is stepping up its campaign against the carbon tax. In a speech to the National Press Club today, Ralph Hillman from the Australian Coal Association reaffirmed his prediction of job losses and mine closures.
This tax will raise the cost of Australian coal mining vis-à-vis overseas competitors and ultimately lead to premature mine closures and the loss of thousands of jobs. Furthermore, it will render investment in Australian coal mining less attractive than in other countries and thereby diminish the expansion of mines and the construction of new ones. It will crimp the growth of the Australian coal industry.
Mr Hillman said Australia should follow the European Union's lead in shielding trade-exposed industries under its ETS. But Treasurer Wayne Swan was quick to defend his government's support for the mining industry and he's promised extra compensation for gas and coal mines.
Well, we're seeing all these sorts of alarmist claims and they're coming from the industry before they've even seen the package. The fact is that there's going to be really strong growth in the coal industry. That is a fact. In the investment pipeline that's going into coal is really big, something like $70 billion worth of investment going into that industry over a period of time. That's really strong investment.
In question time, New South Wales Liberal MP Bod Baldwin tried to put the Prime Minister on the spot over what Labor members in coal mining regions really think about the carbon tax.
And I refer the Prime Minister to Senator Bob Brown's statement that the coal industry should be phased out, and Senator Lee Rhiannon's statement that the coal industry can be closed within a decade. Prime Minister, have you received any representations from the member for Capricornia, member for Throsby, member for Cunningham or member for Hunter seeking a guarantee that no coal mine will close and that no coal miner will lose their job as a result of your carbon tax?
They, like me, understand that this is an industry with a very bright future. It's an important part of our economy and it's an industry that has experienced very solid growth.
So there's a lot of figures being bandied about how many coal mines are going to close under the carbon tax, and the Coal Association, they've released a report and they say 18 mines could be shut, and that's by 2020 if the carbon price goes up to $50 a tonne. But then you've got like the Citigroup report, and they said that they don't expect any significant mine closures. So it's hard to know what to believe in this one.
All right, well, let me make a declaration up front. I actually have a client who is a coal miner. I'm not involved in the carbon debate either on behalf of my coal mining client, although it's interesting that my client actually has said on the public record in response to a question that they think we should all wait to see what actually comes out on Sunday before we sort of start ripping our hair out, and that there does have to be a carbon outcome. So
some coal miners support a carbon tax?
I think that there are a number of people who are saying there's got to be recognition, and I'm speaking my own personal views now, that there has to be a solution, there has to be a step forward on this, and I think that's a responsible position to take. You know, when you look at, clearly Ralph Hillman's got a brief on behalf of his association. I've got to say, I think that over recent years, and certainly in the last 16, 18 months, the view is that, of course, they're talking their own book. And I think today's representation is seen just as more noise. We've actually got to see what the package is on Sunday, and then we can have a realistic debate about it.
David, they're adamant, the Coal Association. Jobs are going to be lost, mines are going to be shut.
God bless them. God bless them. The coal industry in Australia at the moment is making so much money it barely knows what to do with it. Coal prices have gone through the roof. The prospects of the industry have never been more glorious. Actually, that guy was right when he used the gorgeous old-fashioned word crimp. Yes, it might crimp some of the profits of the coal industry, and yes, there are mines that will close and mines that should close. But for the coal industry to be crying poor at the moment is actually a pretty comic spectacle.
But the coal industry has admitted that they're still going to have growth. They're just saying that yes, growth is going to be diminished.
The growth is going to be enormous, but it might be a little bit less. And so there they are, grandstanding today at the press club about the imminent collapse of the sky in on them. Now, look, of course, some Greens have made extravagant statements in the past about the coal industry. Bob Brown, of course, has been very clear in the last couple of days, saying the coal industry is not going to close. The coal industry is going to prosper under the arrangements that appear on Sunday. But my God, if we are weeping for coal, get ready to tear our hair out over every other industry in Australia.